to talk to you about energy in partnership with Josh McDonald. Josh is the energy coordinator for the City of Ann Arbor. He has been staffing the Energy Technical Advisory Committee and working with our community on the energy strategies that have been identified. To give you a sense, the vast majority of the emissions in our community are from energy usage, and so this is a really significant piece of the pie in terms of getting to carbon neutrality. So a reminder, right, these are our 6. We're going to focus on 3, kind of 2.5 actually, in this portion of the discussion. We're going to focus on the 100% clean and renewable energy and the strategies we're proposing there. We're going to focus on the electrification of appliances. In mobility, we'll take up the other piece. And we're going to focus on energy efficiency and the sub-activities we've identified here. So the very first activity we have is that 100% clean and renewable kind of overarching strategy we're working towards. And in this space, we have 3 sub-actions that we're going to highlight for you. The first is community choice aggregation. I'm going to take that one, and then Josh is going to take over from there. The second is investing in on-site renewable energy and battery storage. We see those 2 as being pretty necessary and connected. And then the third is solar, community solar programs. And we'll talk about what these are. We don't expect everyone in the audience to understand and to know what these topics are because honestly, the landscape is moving very, very fast. So I'd like to take the first one. The first strategy we've identified is called community choice aggregation. And what this is basically we would, as a community, have the option of coming together and going to market and saying we want to buy all of our electricity from 100% clean and renewable energy. We want that electricity to be additional, meaning we don't want to buy from a renewable energy plant that already exists. We want to stimulate new growth in renewable energies, and we actually want that renewable energy to displace fossil fuels. So Texas has a lot of wind. We don't want to develop in Texas and kick wind off the grid. We want to displace coal off the grid or natural gas off the grid. So with those as goals for what we have, there is a piece of legislation that exists in a number of states. Ohio has community choice aggregation. Utah just recently got it. California has it, and a few other states. And it allows us to go to market and buy. And when we go to market, if we get this legislation, which is actually the first step, is working with our state legislators to enable community choice aggregation. If that passes, which we think we have a shot at over time, it will allow someone, let's just hypothetically say that's Josh and I, to go out to market and buy this energy on behalf of the residents and the businesses and the university and the City of Ann Arbor. By doing that, we get a really great deal. So that's the idea behind community choice aggregation. What's also really nice about this strategy is if we get legislation in the state that allows this, every other municipality can do it. So it doesn't just stop at Ann Arbor's borders. So this is a really big strategy because 50% of the greenhouse gas emissions in our community are from electricity. So in one fell swoop, if we were able to bring everyone to the table, we make a real big dent in our footprint.
Hello everyone, my name is Josh McDonald. As Missy said, I am the energy coordinator for the City of Ann Arbor, and I will be going on to this next slide. So just to kind of build off community choice aggregation, we also want to make sure that we're really using all of the solar potential that we have within the city as well. That really goes towards kind of local on-site renewables on your homes, for example, looking at schools, municipal buildings, anything that has that potential where we can use it, for solar generation. We look at those opportunities as well as any other type of renewable generation. I think in the state of Michigan, as many of you probably know, we do have kind of unfavorable net metering laws. And over the last couple of years, those laws have just become less favorable for people to have solar panels on their homes. For those who don't know, net metering, when you're actually generating electricity and you're using that electricity, that whatever the solar panel is bringing in, you'd be using it for your operations, whatever you're doing in your home. But there are times in which For example, there might be a lot of sun, your solar panel might be generating, but you're not home, you're not using that electricity. So that electricity goes back onto the grid. And when it goes back onto the grid, basically the utility gives you a rebate for that electricity. And a lot of times, that rebate can become unfavorable for the people having or putting on those solar panels. So we really think that batteries can help use everything that you generate on site. So that way, for example, when you come home late at night, there's no sun coming down on the solar panels. You can still use the generation that was created earlier in the day. Other piece to this as well, we do have community programs that are currently ongoing. So if you guys haven't had a chance to talk to Julie Roth, out in front there's a table. Solarize, awesome. Solarize program, I suggest you do that. She's kind of going out into the community, getting neighborhoods to really sign on. And the solar installers are giving a pretty decent discount on top of actually purchasing the solar panels. So we're planning to do more things like that and really use all of the potential that we have within our city borders. And with that, I will pass it back over to Missy.
So the next strategy here in the 100% clean and renewable, the last strategy is community solar. And this is something that is not enabled right now per state law, but there is legislation. And I believe our state rep is still here, or might be here. He was here, who has sponsored that legislation. You can learn more from him. It's a package of bills. Community solar acknowledges that not all of us have roofs that are viable for solar. Not all of us own our roofs, and not all of us can afford the upfront capital to put that infrastructure in place. So community solar would allow us to be able to build a solar array that people buy into at different levels, and you would get the financial benefit of that solar, but you wouldn't have to necessarily pay the full cost of that entire asset. You pay a portion and you get a value back that's proportional to what you invest. These tend to be in a park. Minnesota is very well known for community solar programs. And again, the importance of this strategy is rounding out access to renewable energy throughout the entire market. There are certain community solar programs that also allow you to buy extra. You can buy in to help perhaps your low-income neighbors also access the value of these programs, and that's something that we're looking at. So this is, again, a case where we want to do community solar, and the first step for us is working on the legislation that enables this as a possibility.
So for our next one, switching appliances, like we said, and specifically we're looking at kind of our normal appliances that we have in our homes. So if you have kind of a stove top that runs on gas, we want to go ahead and switch that over to electricity. But then, there's also furnaces that we have in our homes that heat up the house on these very cold days. And we're looking at also switching over those furnaces from natural gas to electricity. And one of the main reasons we want to do this is because natural gas in many ways, it emits, as soon as you're burning it, it basically emits carbon emissions. And not only that, but methane in itself has about 25 times more potent a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. So we want to try to make sure that we're fuel switching and switching out our electricity over our natural gas over to electricity. I think the technology is there now with things like heat pumps. So a heat pump basically works a little bit like a refrigerator. It basically has a compressor outside, and then you have a unit inside, and it'll move the heat from inside the house to outside and from outside to inside, depending on whether you need to cool or warm the house. So these are things that we're looking into as far as electrification and switching over our appliances. And then I guess another important part of this is also energy efficiency. So I think whenever you're doing renewables, whenever we're talking about making sure that we're basically greening our grid, you also want to make sure that the use, we kind of lower our use as well and kind of the demand side. So we have a couple of supporting plans here. So support transition to more energy efficient homes and businesses. We also have energy disclosure and benchmarking policies we're looking into. We want more stringent building code requirements. We also are looking at powering streetlights, crosswalks, outdoor lighting, and then finally net zero energy affordable housing.
We obviously want to improve the efficiency of our homes and our businesses. An average home is giving the outdoors 30% of the energy that you are using. You are just using to heat or cool outside. That's wasting your money. That's not good for the environment. And so we want to help fix that. So we're thinking about strategies here. And again, we need your help to understand. We host a lot of meetings at OSI, and we don't get people to come talk about energy efficiency. We don't get people to take the incentives that we offer. But if we put solar out there, people come. So we're trying to figure out how we get you to eat the peas and the carrots when you also eat that delicious chickpea steak. I made that up on the spot. I'm not sure how that worked, but we tried. So we need help thinking about how we're helping people do the efficiency work, because the efficiency, of course, saves resources that can be reinvested in other programs and efforts that we're moving forward with. So efficiency is a very large part of what we're looking to do. And we have some ideas, but we need to hear yours to round this out.
We're also working on energy disclosure ordinances, both in residential, multifamily, and commercial. We think this is really important. It's almost like, and we equate it to kind of a miles per gallon with a vehicle. So it's really important that you guys have the information as to how much you'll be spending on your electricity and your natural gas, especially when, for example, you're renting out a unit or you're purchasing a new home, or even for commercial sector, when you're renting out a certain property to be able to have a business. We want to make sure that you know what you're getting into, that you have that information. And I think in some ways, an energy disclosure where that information is made public, it really helps also make informed decisions. So at that point, you might be able to kind of work out the math and say, okay, if we upgrade something in our home that might not be as efficient, we might have some upfront capital costs, but it'll pay back for itself within a certain time period. And then after that, we're just going to be seeing savings. So I think it really helps to kind of not only save the environment, save the planet, but it also just makes sense when it comes to kind of calculating things and just having a good understanding as to our energy bills and our energy spend.
Another really important piece of the puzzle is getting more stringent building codes. So if we're going to build or we're going to do major renovations, we want to make sure that those buildings and that infrastructure is as efficient as possible. And this, again, is a piece of state legislation that we would have to work on. We have building codes, as do all states. In Michigan, municipalities are not allowed to have more aggressive building codes than the state code. So we are literally stuck with whatever the state adopts as the code. We also have a window of opportunity, however, because it looks like in 2021, the state will be hopefully adopting a new code, and one of the codes before them is a very aggressive building code. And I see Jan in the back who can talk to you about this. You want to raise your hand if you're interested. She's working on this. An appendix potentially to that code is what's called the Zero Code, which would allow us to require buildings to be net zero energy buildings. And so we want to support this piece of legislation or policy so that all new developments are net zero developments. Let's not create a problem we have to go back and fix. Let's start from the beginning with something that's efficient and tight.
Streetlights, crosswalks, and outdoor lighting. So I think it's really important, given the fact that our community really has these goals, that the city also takes it upon themselves to embed these things within the infrastructure, our kind of everyday living life. Streetlights are a great opportunity for something like that. Include solar panels on it, make sure that they're LEDs. Just maybe a year ago or so, we actually switched over a number of our streetlights, about 360 streetlights, over to LED, and the payback was 1.6 years, and after that we just see savings. So I think it just makes sense. Again, even from a kind of residential perspective, if you guys haven't looked at switching out your lights, your conventional lights, to LEDs, it's kind of the lowest hanging fruit, and I think it's one of those steps you can take. It makes, again, it really does reduce the carbon footprint significantly, and it also just makes financial sense as well. So I think those are great opportunities. And then finally, net zero energy affordable housing. So I think by this point, I think it's become very clear that our office is really, we really focus on equity and making sure that those who have maybe the biggest challenge trying to kind of adopt these things, that we don't exclude them, that we always kind of keep them in mind and we try to help them along the process so that way we can all get to net zero. And I think this is a perfect example of that. We've been working with the Housing Commission to basically do net zero energy affordable housing. So, putting solar on their roofs, looking at VRF systems, for example, heat pumps, things like that, electrifying internally, and really just doing insulation, doing all the energy efficiency upgrades to get them to net zero. And again, I think that that's a really important step to make sure that we don't leave anyone behind and that our whole community as a whole really can achieve this together in partnership.